And what that is that same field I showed with the torus, it pushes out from your body. It's actually supposed to extend quite far from your body when your Merkaba, quote unquote, is completely activated. But in this case, this harmonizes and stimulates the field. So it's more of like something that when you're thinking or when you're talking, you know, you use this to basically maintain the field that's around you, right? So this is what I call spiritual technologies, right? And no telling what kind of flack I would get if, you know, I start, because they're like, oh my goodness, Sevan's already do, you know, but at the end of the day, like what I will do is I will, me too, I will basically take all of the knowledge, because for me, I started getting to this point, especially after like my 8th year. And I was like getting all this knowledge that was about like the beyond. And I started asking myself how much of this knowledge I was able to apply in the physical reality. And I told myself that I needed to start basically making my consciousness, higher self or whatever, give me knowledge about things that were going to assist me in this reality. Because it seemed like it always loved to go into like the other planets and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I love the knowledge and everything, but I will often find when I will wake up that there would be nothing that I could actually come into the reality and help myself with specifically. And when I asked about that, I was told because that's how I was focusing my energy. So I started focusing my energy on getting knowledge about higher things that could be applied in the reality right now. And this is what came to me, but I had to build it. And because in the first phase, I was like trying to get people to understand what I was trying to build, like engineers and CAD guys and stuff. And all I was doing was ending up with a bill and not what I wanted. So then I started, of course, in the process of training myself. That's why you always see some machine around me or 3D printer or mill or something like that, because I'm fabricating constantly. Like I'm always making and creating, shaping and forming and fashioning different things to see what is the potential of the energetic fields, because I know the reality contains what I call power gloves. These are quirks in the reality. Like we had one before where I had this house in the room, there was a dome in the room was domed. And it turned out that underneath this room, they were going to make a wine cellar, but they decided not to. But the area was still hollow and you never knew it because they put a floor over it. But somehow when you got in a certain point of this room and you talked, you couldn't hear your voice, but the person in the room could. And it was like you were talking in their head. This is known to happen. It's like an acoustic thing, and it happens at a sweet spot in the curve. And so those kind of things and many more piqued my interest to realize that, hey, these folks be running around here acting like they discovered everything already, but really they haven't. After all, they're pretty ignorant. So if you crack into the knowledge, don't think that you're not going to potentially discover something that nobody has ever found out, because they're constantly hiding any of this stuff, right? So it's just that awareness that once again that, you know, we're not only able to create, but like I said, I also have even been able to create these things and bring them out to humanity. And these are the things that we're going to be giving away. In fact, we're going to be giving away two cube octahedrons, 2 watches. And then I'm also going to be giving the generative AI course away that I did, because it would teach a person how to do everything with making the images, how to even do the video thing. You know, I want to link up with you too, because we talked before about, you know, at least sponsoring some of this stuff and putting it on the channel. And but I just need to know, of course, what resonates right with you. And, you know, I just want to, just spread the knowledge more and spread these gifts more. And this stuff happens for me because I also remember I'm literally in the jungle. So I have no real distraction like that. So I have a lot of time to really, like, I could tell you that somebody would spend probably at least 10 years trying to make this. Like at one point, we was always like, when we were again, I speak in a collective, when we was engineering this, I often thought like, man, you know, somebody could take my design, right? And it's so hard to crank one of these out. I thought that I'd be flattered if somebody did, because even the moment they got to the bezel, they'd be like, oh man, we ripped it up, broke it up. You know, so anyway, I just was, like I said, it's a lot of things that you can create when you have the time to, right?
Yeah, so, definitely. Oh man, well, last question, Sevan. Like I said, we definitely got to do a part 2. We going on 5 hours, brother. We go
small things to a giant.
We go to a 5 hour. Listen, all right, last question, brother. If we're analyzing this thing we call life in terms of a video game, and you know, I'm gonna reference Mike Tyson's Punch Out since I'm an 80s baby. You know, you got the first fighter, second fighter, third fighter. The last fighter was Mike Tyson.
Glass Joe first.
Glass Joe was the first fighter. Glass Joe was the first fighter. Last fighter was Mike Tyson. Real hard to beat for a lot of people. A lot of people to this day never beat Mike Tyson.
Yeah, they never got past Ball Bull.
Yeah.
The second Ball Bull.
If we're looking at, you know, let's say the Great Mother, and this is her video game that she's playing, not just Earth, but the whole universe. It's a video game that's being played by the Great Mother, and there's different levels. Would you say Earth is the last character, the Mike Tyson? Is it the most difficult level in the video game because it's the most dense, the most advanced souls make it here because it's the most, I mean, this shit, you come here, you got amnesia, you might have a mother that's a crackhead, then you might get tortured, then you might go through trauma, then after that your baby mama cheat on you, then after that your kids are bad, like anything can happen. That's the point. Infinite possibilities, anything can happen. You lose your memory, you forget who you are, simultaneously you're being brainwashed. Is this the most difficult level in the whole universe for any soul to play? I mean, and after this, you don't beat the game. There's nowhere else to go, Seven. Jupiter, Saturn, nothing is as difficult as Earth. Would you say it's like that, my brother?
My take on this is first of all, the Great Mother doesn't like games. This is kind of like when you go into your grandmother's house and she's just like so strict and it's like everything is in order. My experience has been with the Great Mother exactly like that. The Jackal loves games, though. He's literally a jester. He's a joker. And in that way, in his trickster-like behavior, he has created many of these. It's like a smile now, cry later kind of scenario where it seems like a dramatic comedy. That's kind of like what it is, like a divine comedy. Right. But people really get hurt, right? Yeah. And it's a sadistic laughing like a Joker. Like, you know how they show Joker on the movie where he's smiling, but it's really because of all the pain. And it's almost like they show people when they get crazy, like they had just one really dark movie. You see the trailer and you just know what they on, and it was called Smile or something like that. And it was showing this weird grimace, which is the term, occult term is grimace. It's a part of the Reaper. So there's other forms here, and they're not as nice. And when they appear with a very sinister type of smile, and it's all darkness, right? So it's all craziness. I'll just say it like that. So in that way, you know, it's kind of like a person that becomes a lunatic. Like you start being in something so long, because at the end of the day, this could drive a person psycho, because it's a cycle, right? So they're consistently repeating the cycle over and over again. If they can't figure out what's going on, it starts to drive them crazy. And then they start to kind of get like binded to it, right? And so from my experience, the game-like nature to this reality that's so much of a joke right now is a product of the Jackal. Versus in the Great Mother's reality, it is more of like what you're explaining, where there's things to learn. Right. So what this is what they call the lamb on the path. It's like you kind of left the path and now you're kind of in Wonderland. But when you return back to the path and you continue your journey. And this journey, it consists of like walking through the halls of your ancestors and absorbing all the wisdom and the knowledge that they have. So in Earth is still one of the ancestors, or even the Jackal is one of the ancestors. This is another thing that people need to understand. In the lines in these lineages, it's not like they're going to go and kill the Jackal. This would be very similar to walking into somebody else's family and saying, kill the father because he did X. You don't even have the rank to do that. Like, so it's like a highborn being killed by a lowborn is not really even approved in that way, right? In the whole scheme of things with the royal families and holy families and this kind of thing, right? So this could perpetuate for quite a bit externally. Internally, you have really a lot of power unless you fall out of power. And that's what we were saying about the hereditary passing of where somebody can kind of like doom you a little bit, like your mom can doom you a little bit, and you'll have to kind of swim. That's why we have a saying around here, keep swimming. And what we're talking about is getting to the surface. Because a lot of times people are looking to even get to zero again, because where they're at is like negative 30 in the degrees, right? They're base, lo-fi, right? So they're really low in their frequency. And, you know, and versus not saying low frequency is a bad thing. There's a lesson there. Sub infrared is the realm. You could see them if you if you weren't exposed to light for 2 weeks, you can see the other entities. They live in the sub-red realm, what they call it? Infrared, right? They're infrared, literally. That's actually what you see them. They move around like red shadows. You see what I mean? And if the more you exposed to light, because your pineal gland closes when you're exposed to light. And that's why you should understand kind of like the whole role of light in a reality is actually to blind you. That's why they call it blinded by the light.
Right.
And so when you're also remember the sun, remember I said it's still more like the great mother's principle, because it's like those are the machinations that are dynamos. But this is not the same sun. This is the sixth sun, right? So the sixth sun, in this case, all these suns roll through like processors in the morning.
Right.
They're CPUs. So when they come through, they process what's in the cloud. That's where they stole that from. The sun, it comes forward and it has creatures. I can't tell you what they are. I have seen them before. And when they come, they run and they gather the cloud. And what you can see the cloud is like when a person is dreaming, they build a cloud, okay? And all of the dream is in that cloud. Then when the sun comes in the morning, it sends, they say they go and they come. That's the only thing I've ever read. They go and they come. And when I witness them, they're like dogs in a way that they go and they get a cloud and then they bring it back to the processor. And they're more like, look. And then the processor acknowledges it and it absorbs it, and then it goes and runs again. So it's almost like a way of fetching everything that everybody has been dreaming about that night. And the sun processes that like a CPU.
Right.
So in conclusion, I kind of see everything to be still within this divine design of, you got the jokers and the tricksters, and they exist on one level. They call them like when you take any kind of substances, you see them first. Okay, peep out how this works, because you can always prove this stuff that I'm saying. When you first take DMT, the first thing that happens is the ground seems like it's moving. So if you're on the beach, you'll watch the sand go like this. If you're in the jungle, you'll watch the ground move. And this is because what you generally activate first is the root chakra, and the root chakra corresponds to the ground. And because your root chakra is now moving, it looks like the ground is moving. Okay. However, as you keep going on more and more journeys and the Kundalini starts rising, the ground stops moving and other things start moving. Right. So this is an indicator that wherever your Kundalini is residing is what you're going to see animated when you enter into these higher states of consciousness, right? Or into any altered state of consciousness where, you know, you're now utilizing your spiritual vehicles and your spiritual capacity. So what this equals is it equals the ability for you to, I mean, I guess I kind of explained it all there. It's like you have now like these vehicles that allow you to move in and through different spaces, but based on the levels. And that's why I was showing before that the jackal, he inverted himself and he became the external genitalia Tubal Cain. So, of course, when you activate the root chakra, also, if you notice, the first thing that you see, even when your eyes are closed, is it looks like a kaleidoscope of jokers. Anybody who's gone on DMT, everybody sees it. Most people don't know what it is. It's like a kaleidoscope of jokers, and it feels like they're so close to you that they're like humping your face, and it's very uncomfortable because you're like trying to not see them, but you see them when your eyes close because your third eye is open. This is the joker. This is the jackal. This is the root chakra. So it's because that world is built there, and this is where you're at. You see what I mean? So if you take that knowledge and you use celestial mechanics, as we call it, this is where you're at. technically when you first begin. You kind of start off in the median or in Midgard. So technically, think about where you're at. When you cross land, you got the deep, which is more like your legs, right? And it's going way down there. And then you got all the way up here to the top, which is like that realm that I told you that's just like all white and everything sounds really high pitched. But where you're at is you're on Earth. You're in the median. Where Earth is a median, as I mentioned in my last conversation, is where all of the gods settle their disputes, or all the family members settle their disputes. Like it's like a sovereign in a courtroom. When something is decreed, it doesn't happen to that sovereign. We don't punish that sovereign. It happens to the species he's connected to. That's how they figured that out, right? So they don't war and fight amongst each other. It all happens down here in the median. This is the mediation zone, right? And so because of that, if what you're saying, to put what you're saying in perspective, technically this gets complicated the more you drill into, like, basically the more distorted or further away aspects of the reality from self. That's why it seems so difficult. Baby mama leaving, all this stuff crazy going around you. Like I said, like it gets to a point where you can't even imagine where all this stuff is coming from because you got so many crazy things going on. But what you'll notice is when you get your life together and you have a moment to stop and remove like stimulation, and like I did that when I came to Costa Rica, you'll start noticing like it'll clear, like you'll go through a course of where all the karma is working itself out. And then you'll get into this like where there's no karma because you're not doing anything. Like I literally was in the house every single day just meditating and eating like palm heart sandwiches. You know what I mean? Right. Nothing, right? No stimulus. And in that, I never had like so basically if you don't do nothing, nothing happens. Right? If you do great things happen. If you do bad things, expect it. It's going to come around at some point. And if it's too much stuff, you won't even be able to know where it all is coming from. You just think it's a part of life. And really what it is it's kind of like a part of the trickery. Because remember, there's also entities, and we going, but there's also entities that they're listening. Like they're listening all around to figure out where they can catch you up on something. Like that's how the kingdom, if you say the kingdom of Seth, the subservients of the kingdom of Seth that are already disincarnate, meaning they don't have bodies, so they won't be entering back into the physical plane to get money, which money doesn't stop here. It's like an energetic balance energy thing, current. To get money, they have to cause like some confusion. So they're basically ranked like the military. And that's why like a warlock will have like 10,000 demons. Like he's like the Lord of the Mice. Jeanette made a joke the other day, and she was saying that we were seeing these lions on National Geographic, right? But they had all these flies and shit in their face. And she thought about it for a minute. She said, "What good is it being a lion if you're always disturbed by the flies?" That shit was brilliant because all that power. Yeah, you may be able to run down all these gazelles and shit, but the flies is just. And you don't got no hands for that. All you got is a tail, right? It's just, again, an ode to where you really resting your power at and what do you really find to be powerful, right? And so, yeah, that's the story of this, is that if we see how the design is, we'll actually understand that the more you clear your field of stuff that you just know is going to enter you into confusion, the more you start getting to, like we say, give me to ground zero, like at least sea level, so I can poke my head out of the water. Right. Because when you're in the negs, there's all types of restrictions and confinements there, even jail. Okay, all that is netherworld stuff, right? And then you break the surface. Now you're balanced. Okay, now you don't have debt. You don't owe anybody. Right. And then now you start climbing from there. And then as you're climbing, the reality becomes more and more free. And it becomes less and less like a joke, less and less like it doesn't mean anything. And then it starts having more and more importance. Right. So that's kind of what's going on with the directions of when reality starts becoming really strict and confined and hard versus as it starts getting easier. And it seems like the celestials and everything is working in your favor. Yeah.
Mm. Wow, amazing, my brother. Definitely amazing. Hey, we gotta. I'm scared to ask another question because we might go another hour, brother. we might,
Now
we
you
might,
blaming me now. Now you blaming me.
we might be here. Oh man, wow, what a lie, man. I'm gonna go back, take some notes from tonight.
We
I
did
mean,
a high five right here. So what is that? 5 hours and 22 minutes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, man, I definitely appreciate it. We got to do a part
Pretty
two,
long one.
Seven. Got to do
All
a
right.
part two.
No doubt. That's almost like a quarter of a day. Anytime,
Leave your website when you started showing your stuff, them gadgets, man. The people was like, "Where can I get that at?" Tell the people about your website.
Japan, I found out that hydrogen is like a game changer, and there's so much research, like real doctor, like .gov research